Hi, my name is Hannah, and I'm going to be sharing a testimony about how God has delivered me from panic attacks and anxiety. It started really when I was about 13 years old. I actually grew up in church though, so this was all happening while I was a Christian. I got saved in church when I was 7, and I grew up in a Christian home. There were some struggles that were happening at my home. I have a brother who is special needs. He's nonverbal autistic, and growing up, it required a lot of attention. My parents, they really did their best to help him and to help us all as a family unit. But there was still a lot of struggle in that. A lot of times, they didn't really know what to do, or we didn't know what to do or how to react. He had a lot of medical issues, and it changed the dynamic of our family in a good and sometimes a bad way too, because there was just some medical issues that we didn't know how to deal with or how to make better. And so when he got to a certain age, just because he had a lot of medical issues and he couldn't talk, he became pretty violent in the house. And that was around when I was about 12 or 13. He was about the same age as me. And unfortunately, his aggression and his violence came out towards my mom. And so there would be a lot of nights where he would just wake up and he would start either hurting himself or he would start to hurt her. And it caused a lot of tension and chaos in the house. As someone who's young and 13, they don't really know how to deal with it. I also had a little sister who I think she was about 4 at the time. So my main goal was really just to protect her and try to protect my mom. But it did get to the point where it got too violent, and a lot of times I had to call the police to come over and to separate them and to help us. And I just remember that time just being really, really dark, because I remember going to high school. I was a freshman, and my friends were complaining about how, they wanted a special dress, or they were mad that their parents didn't give them an allowance, and I was up at 3 o'clock in the morning with the cops over my house. And so it was just this really big divide. I couldn't really relate to a lot of kids my age. But then panic attacks did start to come, because he would wake up and just have these outbursts of anger and of violence. And I would worry going to school if my family was going to be safe or not. So this panic and just this fight or flight mode just came over me. And honestly, I didn't really know what to do. It was like my body was just responding to what was going on in my house. It didn't start to get a little bit better until I started, believe it or not, going to youth group. I didn't really have a lot of friends when I was at church, and I was so scared to talk to anybody. I remember standing at the threshold of my youth room, and I was so scared to even go in to talk to anybody, because my anxiety and my panic was just so bad. I would go hide in the bathroom until service started, and right when the preacher started talking, I would go and I would sit and I would listen, and then I would leave immediately, because I was just so nervous about just being in a room full of people. And so I really encountered Jesus when I was at youth convention for the first time. I was about 14 or 15, I think, and I had never felt the presence of God like that before. I was in an arena of about 4,000 kids, and everybody was just crying and laid out, and it was crazy. And I thought to myself, God, if I could have your presence like this every day, I can make it through what's at home. I can make it through what's at school. And from there, he really started me on a journey of just walking me through all of my anxiety and everything that I was going through, and really being my anchor when everything felt like everything was gonna just blow up. So I graduated high school, I turned 18, I went to Bible college because I felt God was calling me there. And for the first time when I got to college, I had my own room. For the first time, everything was quiet. And I was not surrounded by a lot of people. I didn't have my family with me, I was by myself, and it was just me and God. And I thought that's when everything would stop. I thought, oh my gosh, I just have to get out of this environment and my anxiety, my panic attacks will leave. But that didn't happen. Unfortunately, it got worse, because all of the things that I had been suppressing in order to continue to live at my house and go through school and all that kind of stuff, I didn't have to do that anymore, and so it got worse. I started having a lot of flashbacks and nightmares of everything that had happened at my house. And my panic attacks got to the point where they would be so bad that I would have one and I would just fall asleep afterwards and be out for the rest of the day. So I started seeing a counselor while I was at school, and I told them everything that had happened. But then at the same time, I started hearing, God wants something else for you. He doesn't want you to live this life of anxiety. He doesn't want you to live this life of panic, because in him there is peace and life doesn't have to be chaotic. And that was a first, because you get so used to the environment that you're in that you think that there's all there is to it. And so I remember I was really struggling just being able to go to class and to be in a room with people and with students and going to class and even going to the lunchroom. It was really hard. And I remember there was one chapel, it was during the first semester, and they gave an altar call for something. I don't know what it was for, but they gave an altar call, and I went up, and I remember getting on my knees and just praying, just asking God for help. And then I remember someone had put their hand on my back, and they started praying for me in tongues. And then all of a sudden, they switched from tongues to English, and they said it was over. I could be free. And as they started praying that, it was like all of the flashbacks started coming to my head, everything that I went through, and it was like it was coming out. And as I'm seeing these pictures, I'm screaming at the altar, and I'm crying, and she's crying too, and I felt just more people coming around me. As I was crying, it was like I felt something leave. I felt this heaviness and this weight leave. This felt like black and darkness was leaving me. And I remember getting up from the altar, and I physically felt like this white covering over me. And I was looking at my hands and my arms, because everything about me felt different. And I just felt this lightness and just this clean slate that just came over me. And from that day, I haven't struggled with panic attacks anymore. I haven't had one since. I haven't had any more nightmares. I haven't had any more flashbacks. The enemy will try to come and remind you of your past, but he has no power when God delivers you from it. And so ever since then, I don't struggle being in a room full of people. I can now talk in front of people. Before, that was not able to happen. I can talk in front of people. I can speak in front of people. I could go up to people randomly. I don't even know who they are, and I could start a conversation with them. That was never a thing before. But because of how God delivered me and because of how he healed me, he took all of my pain, everything that didn't make sense, all of the darkness, everything that was stored up inside of me. And once I gave it to him at the altar, he took it all and he gave me something else that I didn't even know that I needed. He gave me peace. I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for him. And so I'm so grateful for his power. His power is still evident today. If he could do it for me when I was 19 and at the lowest point of my life, he could do it for anybody else.